Hello and welcome to week 7 of our summer class, Developing, Organizing, and Managing School Counseling Services and Programs. Tonight is the last video that you will have to watch for this class. And I do hope you watch it because there are going to be there's going to be some really good information in here to help you finish up the semester and kind of help you understand, the whole developmental school counseling program. Also going to talk a little bit about some odds and ends, things that we maybe haven't touched on very much, and then also review Hatch and Heartline chapters 10, 11, and 12. We have gone through almost every chapter of the Hatch and Heartline book. We didn't spend a lot of time on pre-test and post-test, which I think is chapter 7. And these chapters we're going to go over quickly because there is a lot of good information in there, but there are so many good templates that you can always use when you're looking to use the different things for results sharing. So chapter 10 is reporting results. Chapter 11 is reporting results via the flashlight approach. And chapter 12 is the flashlight packages, putting it all together. So it just really culminates everything that you are going to do in your national school counseling, your comprehensive school counseling program. And so we're going to kind of just real briefly talk about chapter 10. Why is it important to put everything you did together in a results report? And this is really important because you do all the work. You start with, your needs assessment, looking at your data, and then you figure your annual outcome goal and what you're going to do, what activities and lessons are you going to do to try to, make some change in students' behavior, achievement, or attendance. And then what you're going to do at the end is evaluate that and make sure you understand is when you're going to give a results report, you always need to evaluate the lesson or the activity and did it work? Was it something that is worthwhile doing again next year, or is it something different? I think I've shared with you that, I go through this class every year. I change up, my activities and my PowerPoint presentations, because I think, again, every year you have to evaluate what you do and make sure that it's being successful. You also want to talk about your program improvement. Is it really helping your program, the things that you're doing? Is it helping students improve in that behavior, academics, or achievement areas? And then when you do a reporting results, you advocate for the students that you're helping. You're letting them know what you're doing, how students are different because of the school counseling program. And then we talked earlier a lot about systematic changes in your school district, and you want to share those and figure out what those are. And you can do that when you are giving your results report. And the systematics change, again, is things that maybe your school has done for years and years and they just haven't changed it because nobody has asked them. But you want to make sure and give every student the opportunity, and you want to make sure that all students are getting opportunities. And the only way you can do this is maybe sometimes you have to really find the data and some research to challenge some of those things. And then the last reason why you want to report your results is because it's program advocacy. It lets people know what you are doing in your program, that you're not, just sitting and drinking coffee all the time. So program advocacy is a big deal, and we're going to talk a lot more about that at the end of this presentation. But just know there are a lot of action plan examples in chapter 10. There's a lot of reporting, results templates and things like that. So make sure that you do that. You always want to ask the question, how are students different because of the school counseling program? You need to look for changes in student attendance, behavior, and academic achievement, and this should be reflected in your annual outcome goal, right? And Mike Smoker talks a lot about how all results are good, if they're good or bad, if they are what you wanted them to be or not. You need to make sure and share those because you can learn from all results, good or bad results. So make sure that you don't think just because you did something that maybe wasn't as successful as you wanted it to be, that you don't report that. You still report that and share, because you're going to learn from it and decide what next steps you're going to do. So chapter 11 also has a lot of examples on templates about the flashlight approach, because as Hatch and Heartline talk about, you can't highlight everything that you do in the counseling program over a whole year. There's so many different things that you do. You need to pick 2 or 3, maybe tier 1 activities, or maybe even 1 or 2 of the intentional or changing or closing the gap lesson or goals that you make. And so you only need to pick a few examples and really highlight those, how you decided you were going to do it, what you did, and then the results. So this is just step by step. You need to make sure you include your school, include the people who were involved. Make sure you title your presentation to what you did, if it was attendance related, behavior related, or achievement related. You need to always start with a thank you to the people for listening and for the people who were involved, and you need to thank them at the end. So always include your SMART goal or your district school goals. That's your annual outcome goal. What did you learn from your needs assessment that helped you decide what your goal was going to be focusing on for the year? And make sure that it's written in that SMART goal format. And then you need to share your why. Talk about your the data that you looked at and explain the needs assessment that you did. And then you need to have relevant research that shows that this isn't just something that you think is important. You actually have research that shows why this is so important. And then share those websites with your people. And I've shared all throughout the class different websites that you can go to get that relevant research. Make sure you include what ASCA mindsets and behaviors were addressed. You need to make sure again that people in your staff understands that you have a standards, and just as like math and science and English, that school counselors have standards. School counseling program has standards that they need students that to also be addressed and be looked at. And then you're going to explain what the school counselors did and who they did it for. You're going to talk about the grade level that you worked with, and then what specific activities. And then you're also going to talk about what you wanted to look for in your what you wanted to change in your outcome. And then talk about what if it actually did change anything, and if there were changes in students' behaviors, attendance, or achievement. And talk about the data that you use, the process data, the perception data, and the outcome data. And then talk about next steps. Don't let them think that you're just going to stop there. If it worked, you're going to continue to do that. If it didn't work, you're going to make some changes and try again. And then always at the end, thank your audience. So these are just some really important steps that you need to include whenever you're giving a results report. And so at Cedar Falls High School, usually these are done at the end of the year, but it's really difficult sometimes because the end of the year gets pretty stressful and there's always a lot of things going on. So if you might have to get creative, and if you want to share this with your staff or some of the administrators, you might have to do a video or show, use a PowerPoint or a Prezi or Canva. A lot of you talked about using Canva on the discussion question. But we used to actually share our results report in the beginning of the year, because when we met with our staff at the beginning of the year, we would go through and share other information that staff needed to know, and then we would include some basic information about what our focus was the year before, and what kind of impact we made, and then what our plans were going to be for this year. So it's just really important that you share, to advocate for your program, advocate for your students, and let people know what you are really doing in the school counseling office. So then chapter 12, it's putting it all together. And again, it talks about, every chapter, it talks again about putting it all together, having your action plan, using a lesson plan. For those of you who haven't had an education background, you want to make sure that you might have to do a little bit of extra for learning how to write lesson plans and including everything. And Hatch and Heartline have great templates for the action plan, for the lesson plan, all the different things. A curriculum slide deck, we didn't talk a lot about that, but that is something where, again, you could have your whole curriculum for each grade level in a slide deck so that you can, if somebody asks you what your curriculum is, you can share that with them and let them know what are the standards in each grade level that you present and work with in every year. Pre-tests and post-tests, again, we didn't spend a lot of time on that. The difference between pre and post-tests and the needs assessments are pre and post-tests. They are measuring specific skills that you are working on to improve, right? The needs assessment is a general tool that you want to figure out what goals you're going to have. And so writing pre and post tests is similar to sometimes the needs assessment, but you need to be very specific and make sure it's grade level appropriate, developmentally appropriate as well. And then the chapter 12 talks more about results reports and flashlights presentation. So make sure, again, you check that over and look at it. So these were a lot of these examples in the appendix for the Hatch and Heartline book. And usually we didn't go through a lot of these, but I want to just go through a couple of Philippe's lesson plans. We're gonna go talk about the curriculum action plan and the presentation and the results report. The curriculum would be like the tier 1, because that's going to be for what all students got, right? Tier 1. Tier 2 is more intentional action plan. Those are going to be for the students who maybe need a little bit of extra. So they're very similar in the templates and things that you write for your action plan and for your lesson plans and things like that. But we're going to just kind of go through real quickly because I think this will give you some good information. So for his first lesson plan that he is doing, again, it is very specific. And if you haven't written lesson plans before, you want to make sure, especially as you first start out, that you are writing down, again, what the activity is, what the grade level is. You're going to write down your ASCA mindsets and behaviors, or if you're using other standards, you want to make sure that from like CASEL, you want to make sure that you include that. You want to include your learning objective, what materials you need, and then the procedure. And the procedure can get pretty specific, but if you use a presentation, you can just go slide by slide and talk about what you are going to do. And then at the end, you need to talk about your plan for evaluation. How are you going to know if this worked or not? And then you need to talk about the different data levels: perception data, outcome data, and process data is who you give the lesson to. And so that's pretty easy. And then a follow-up. So make sure, again, it takes a little bit of time, but you want to make sure and write everything out so that someone else could come in and just do the lesson plan right from your lesson plans. So that's one example of lesson plans. And then I want to show you his pre-test and post-test, which we talked a little bit about. His is for younger grades. So again, he uses the smiley faces, which I think is very, very appropriate. He uses thumbs up and thumbs down for strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. So this is a unit he does on compassion. And so he's asking questions about, hot feelings and things like that. It's going to be measuring some different behaviors. So make sure, again, you include your lesson plan, your pre-post test. So this is your curriculum action plan. So this is, again, something that we didn't spend a lot of time on. I shared a lot of the templates with you. This template is just a little bit outdated because it is from the 3rd edition of the ASCA model, but you need to include all the grade level, the topic, what domain and mindsets and behaviors standards you're using, what curriculum and materials you're using, put on the dates, and then divide up, your process data, your perception data, and your outcome data. The process data is going to be how many students, how many classes, how many students. Perception data is you're looking to change either attitude, knowledge, or skills, right? You're going to measure that in a pre or post test. And then the outcome data is where you're actually going to try to change, either achievement or achievement related things, such as long-term graduation rates or long-term, referrals for behavior, things like that. And then the contact person is also something that you put on that curriculum action plan. So those are really, really important things that you need to make sure you're writing out. Again, you don't have to write them out for every single lesson that you do, but you need to focus on a few that you're going to do. And then this is the results presentation, the flashlight presentation. So again, talks a little bit about the title of the presentation, talks about what school, it tells why they did what they did, what the rationale was, because they had so many office referrals. So they decided to do something in teaching compassion. They also looked and found the research that supported, why they needed to teach those social emotional skills in kindergarten and key outcomes for young adults years later. And so, again, just what we went through on that other slide, he exactly has this. What student standards are addressed. He talks about the participation data, the process data, more process data, the perception data, that's the skills, attitudes, and knowledge that you're trying to change. And then also the outcome data, which is, again, big picture. These are the big ticket items. You want to change either behavior. So there was a 65% decrease of referrals, office referrals, which is huge. You also want to look at graduation rates. You want to look at other things that are big ticket items that administrators are going to love you because you've made such a change in behavior, attendance, or achievement. And then you talk about the summary of what you did and the implications, the limitations, maybe some things you want to do different next time. What are your next steps? And then that thank you at the end. So those are all very great examples that you can look at and to kind of go from, your annual outcome goal to actually doing an action plan and doing your lesson plan. And then hopefully after you do everything, the flashlight presentation. Okay, so now we're going to talk just a little bit about some odds and ends that maybe we didn't share a lot about, but I just wanted to touch on these at the very end. So Rafael Benitez was an assistant principal at Cedar Falls High School. This is his third year. He just finished his third year as being an assistant principal. He wasn't a principal ever before. He was a teacher. He talks a little bit about his past. But I asked him to actually come and have a conversation with all of you, but he was busy. So he put together a little video, and we're not going to listen to it now, but I would really encourage you to listen to it. It's about 15 minutes. Rafael is one of the best administrators I've ever worked with, and he's also one of the youngest, but he was just so compassionate and so wanting to learn. It was his first year as an administrator. He was very willing to learn, and he asked a lot of questions, and we didn't always agree on things, but we could figure it out what we needed to do to move on and to help students. So it's just a little bit of a 15-minute presentation that I would really encourage you to look at and listen to. He also is, he's a Hispanic young man who, in predominantly white environment, he shares a little bit about, what a challenge that was and how he deals with that all the time. He also just talks about how he dealt with school counselors and how we work together. So that is something on your content, and it's also a link in here, which I will share the PDF of this as well, so you can get to the links. And then we talked briefly about School Counseling Advisory Committee. The School Counselor Advisory Committee is going to be a group of stakeholders, which will include administrators, it will include teachers, it will include maybe some paras or, some bus drivers, somebody, in this that encompasses your school staff. It should include parents. It should include students. If probably in the secondary level, you can include students on your advisory committee. And then you also need to include some community members, people who, you think would benefit from knowing what you're doing. And so that whole role, you should meet at least twice a year. And the role of the advisory committee is going to be to provide feedback on your goals, on your student outcome goals. They're going to help you maybe decide what your outcome goals should be. They're going to review your program results. This is who you're going to give that whole presentation to. At least twice a year, you're going to talk to them about what you did and what your plans are for the future. They're going to help make recommendations. They're going to help you advocate. They're going to help you in advocating for the school counseling program, especially the community members. You want people who are going to go out and say, wow, this school counseling program is really on the ball. They're doing some really cool things. Let me tell you what they're doing. And then the School Counselor Advisory Committee also holds school counselors accountable. So you really need a group of people who are going to help you, especially if you're just starting out, that are going to give you feedback. You don't have to do specifically all the things that they tell you to do, but you're going to take their input into consideration, and you're going to have rationales for why you do what you do, and you're going to listen to that group. And the more diverse group you can have, the better. So then, we've talked a lot about building a comprehensive Ask a National Model School Counseling program. So how long does it take for you to build this program? Some of you are going into programs that already have national model school counseling programs in place. Some of you might be going in programs that have nothing in place, and some of you maybe have some components, but not all the components. And so wherever you land next fall, or where you've been the last couple of years, make sure you move that program forward, whether it's a small step in a longer process, or you want to implement a comprehensive program in 1 year. You need to just make sure you plan ahead, make sure you get all the resources that you need, see every obstacle as an opportunity, and make sure that you are letting people know that you are doing what a school counselor needs to be doing, and that we all, we have a national model, we have a curriculum, we have standards. Make sure you're letting them know everything about school counseling, because if we don't educate them, they will not always know, and they will give you they have other expectations of you and will think you should be doing other things. So make sure, again, wherever you are next year, start small and move forward. And the RAMP, so RAMP is the Recognized Ask a Model program, which this is a wonderful program. We were never RAMP certified, but Becky Lenz, who teaches the school counseling program, is RAMP certified. She has re-ramped. I think this is her third time that she's done this. It includes all the components of the Ask a Model. And it's something that I would encourage all of you at some point in your careers to apply for, because if you can do all the components of the comprehensive school counseling program, the writing up for RAMP does take some time to write all your rationales and things like that, but it is something that really helps you with making sure that you're doing what school counselors are supposed to be doing. And there's just, again, a real quick 5-minute video that talks about benefits of RAMP. And again, I would challenge all of you at some point in your careers to hopefully apply for RAMP. We don't have a lot of Iowa school counselors that are RAMP certified, but we want to encourage more and make sure that you're doing all the things that you need to be doing as a school counselor. And then this is another topic that we didn't talk a lot about, but the roles of student service providers. So in your schools, a lot of times you have school counselors, you have social workers, you have mental health counselors, you have school psychologists, and people get those roles confused. And so you need to make sure that you are totally aware of what your role is, which hopefully after this class that you have a really good idea of what school counselors do. But there's some links that I put on this slide that talks a little bit about the social worker role, the school psychologist role, the mental health counselor role, and you all should be working together and collaborating. That collaborating is really important theme of working with the different service providers, but making sure that you do have your specific roles that you are doing and they're doing, so you're not duplicating your services, and that they know what your role is. So that's something I wanted to stress, because that's really, really important. So the next couple slides are kind of finishing up on why, again, it is so important for you to advocate for school counseling. And I hate to say this because, we've been trying for years to let people know what school counselors do, but a lot of times no one really knows what we do. And so advocacy is one of those important components, along with, collaboration and along with leadership, that you need to be doing all the time. And a lot of school counselors aren't totally comfortable with advocacy. They don't think they have enough time, or they don't want to be out there just being like um, the loud person sharing different things. You don't have to be that person always out there, always talking, always being at the front of the group and sharing things. But you do need to make sure that you're advocating for your school counseling program, so that you're letting people know what you do in helping kids and making sure all kids are getting the opportunities. And so those advocacy skills will come in important for legislators. We're going to talk about legislative advocacy. We're going to talk about how you talk to your board members and your administrators. A lot of times we get asked to justify our school counseling program, and we need to make sure to know ways to promote our program. So these are 10 different levels of school counselor advocacy. I actually put this together quite a few years ago, and I've tweaked it a couple different times when I was the school ISCA, Iowa School Counselor Association advocacy chair. So but you need to always be advocating. Like I said, it's just part of one of the main things of our job, along with your leadership and your collaboration. So number one, your student advocacy. What's that question? Again, how are students different because of your comprehensive school counseling program? Use your data, be informed, start small. You don't have to start with major goals, but start small with, looking at the data, finding out, what you can glean from your needs assessment, and then making your annual annual outcome goal, doing your activities, and then doing your results report. Parent advocacy, again, most parents have an outdated idea of what we do, so make sure you're communicating with them. A lot of you shared some really good tools that you could use, SMORE, Canva. A lot of you work through your school district and have different things that you can also share, but let parents know. You need to always assume that parents need to be educated what school counselors do as well. Administrator advocacy. Most principals don't even have a clue about what we did. So Dan Conrad was one of our central central office administrators, and he gave a really great quote. He said, one of the best things a counselor can do is to meet regularly and consistently with their administrators. It's not about show and tell, but an opportunity to gain insight and understanding of each other's role in helping all kids achieve. And I thought he put it very, very well, that you are going to share what you're doing to make sure that the administrators know, but it's also to help gain insight and understanding of each other's role. So then your school district also, get on your leadership committees, get on, work with your parent groups, make sure they know, different things. If you have a parent and teacher association, or sometimes they have different names for those, make sure that you get involved and take any opportunity to share what you do. Sometimes school boards will have you come and present at their meetings. And if your school board doesn't do this, you could ask them to do it. If you can't present at meetings, again, make sure they're receiving newsletters or videos of things that you're doing. Community advocacy, we talked about how important it was to have community members on your school advisory committee. You also, need to work with businesses and organizations. A lot of times schools will have business partners that, help them with different activities and things like that. But a lot of times too, people in the community will call the school counseling office and say, well, hey, can you guys, do this? Can you find students to do, work at this event that we're having? We just need some good kids to do that. They always come to the counseling office. So you need to let the community know too that you want to work with them, and that you are very, supportive of the things that they do, because you want their support if you ever ask them. But you also want to let them know that you have, you're not just sitting around waiting for them to call. You have a curriculum, you have standards, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk more about Day on the Hill. That's legislative issues. Invite politicians to your table. Go to forums. Go to Day on the Hill. It's so important that you form a relationship with your legislators, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. Your state association, again, join ISCA. Some of you might join your Iowa State Education Association or your teacher association. There's usually an admissions count for secondary counselors. There's an admission counselors association that we work real closely with them, and they help us with different things. ACT has a committee. College Board, I think, has a committee. You can also get on those committees, and just you need to figure out, how much you can be involved in the different groups. But if you're involved in those things, then you're going to know what's going on. Your federal advocacy, ASK is going to help you make sure you stay on top of any federal legislation and also different things that are going on in, the country. The Department of Education, you need to know what's going on in your Department of Education. Iowa, we're going through a big overhaul right now with our AEAs, being changed to go to the Department of Education. Counselors need to know what's going on in that area. And there's other things that there's so many school reform issues in our country. So just be informed. If they ask for your opinion, always give it from a school counselor perspective. Use social media in a positive way. Don't use it to, be negative, but use social media in a positive way to show what school counselors are doing so people are aware of, the different things. And then advocate for yourself. And this, again, I know is hard for some people, but you do need to advocate for yourself, because if you don't define your role as a school counselor, someone else will. So your main points are: focus on results of your program, view accountability as a necessity, exhibit high energy. And like I said before, this doesn't mean that you have to be the cheerleader in the room every single time, leading the way, but you do need to have a voice. You do need to make sure that you are sharing, about the different things that the school counselors are doing in their program to make sure, people understand. Hopefully you can energize others to, help you out with some of the things that you're doing. And then execute consistently by consistently turning vision into desired results. And I love that, because, like I said, you will see things and hopefully you will turn those into what you want. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. And then the last few things, again, is how you advocate. Use the resources available to you. Some of you are going to have a lot more resources available to you just because you're at the school that you're at. Use your social media sites. I know Cedar Falls actually has a person just to do like social media and communication. Most school districts have those people. If you're not the person that likes to put out posts on Instagram or X or Facebook, talk to that person and have them help you, develop some things so that they're sharing about the school counseling program. Know your talking points of a school counseling program. Have that in your back pocket. And people ask you, well, why are you not called a guidance counselor? Make sure specifically that is an antiquated term that, when school guidance counselors mostly sat in their office, and their job was at that time was to work with kids to prepare them and tell them that they should go on to more, to college. Where now we work with all students. We work in the, academic, we work in the, social emotional, and we work in career and college ready different domains. So it's really, really important for you to have that in your back pocket and be ready to share with people. Join your state counseling association and ask. I can't share this more. I just think it's so important. They will support you. They will give you information. They will help you be a better school counselor. Celebrate School Counseling Week in February. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a later slide too. Celebrate your successes. Learn from your failures. Keep taking risks. Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially as you start off your school counseling careers, and just start simple and stay flexible. That's going to be a huge, huge thing for you to remember, is to start simple and stay flexible. You don't have to do everything that first year or that second year. It's going to take you about, I think it takes about 3 or 4 years for people to actually really figure out what they're doing and getting that calendar situated and everything going on in their school counseling program. So legislative advocacy, like I said earlier, it's so important for you to know who your legislators are. That means, your community in your state, and then even your, your federal legislators, because it's really important for you to share your opinion with them if they ask. A lot of times legislators they are expected to know everything about everything, and they just can't realistically know all the different things. So they need to have people in their districts who they can call or talk to about school counselors. And so you make sure you might be that person. Uh, Invite them to a meeting, write them letters. When you are contacting your legislators, if there's things that you feel strongly about, that bills that they're passing, it's another really, really important thing that you write them a letter from a school counseling perspective. So you can always find who your specific representatives are and senators are, and that's not always going to be real easy to find in your state. But you always need to use your home email address and computer. Don't use your school one. The only thing you would ever use your school email for is if you're maybe inviting them to a meeting to talk about certain things like that. But otherwise, you always want to use your home email. Make sure you identify yourself as an educator so they can keep your name in the records and that they know how many educators are contacting them. Email or write letters. They prefer more personal stories instead of just form letters. I know when I write letters, I always try to talk about, specific examples of things that, I've worked with students, obviously, protecting confidentiality, but making sure that they understand, the ramifications of bills that they may or may not pass. And then make it student centered. Always make it student centered. Don't make it about you. Attend legislative forums in your community. Most communities will have, forums that you can go and ask questions. And I tell you, when I became the president and president-elect of ISCA, I went to my first legislative forum. I had never been to one before, and I got up and talked about uh, making sure school counselors remembered, and I can't remember which bill it was they were talking about, but it was an education bill, and I got up and talked about, why it was important to also include school counselors in that bill. And I was so scared, and my voice shook and everything, but it was something now I can get up and do all the time when I go to those legislative forums, because it's so important to also make sure everybody remembers school counselors are part of that educational community. And then the Visit the Hill Day, and most states will have a Visit the Hill Day. Usually it's in January, February, March when they're starting their legislative session, and they're going to be voting on bills, and usually it's through your school counselor association. And I remember always hearing about the Visit the Hill Day, but never attending because that's too busy, and I didn't really think it was that important. And then, like I said, as I went through the being president of ISCA and then advocacy chair, I just realized how important that Visit the Hill Day is, because in Iowa, what we do in the morning, and we invite students too, we always brought students to Visit the Hill Day, where we go in the morning and we have some sessions talking about maybe what are some of the topics that the legislators are talking about this year. How do we talk to legislators? We'll give some, talking points again. We'll talk about some other things, just advocacy, why it's so important. And then usually in the afternoon, what they'll do is actually go to the Hill and to the Capitol and visit with the legislators. And like I said, they need to know who you are. They need to know you face to face so that they can come to you and ask you questions if they ever have issues dealing with school counseling. And at first I hated Visit the Hill Day. I thought it was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. But now it's one of my favorite days. And I still went last year when I was retired and went because Cedar Falls still takes students. And I went with them, and it was just always a good day to advocate for school counselors and advocate for your students. So make sure you try to attend and Visit the Hill Day or a legislative forum, but do get to know your legislators. And then National School Counseling Week. This is another thing that we touched on real briefly. This comes right off the Iowa School Counseling Association website, and I'm sure other states have similar information. The National School Counseling Week is February 3rd through the 7th, 2025. It's sponsored by ASCA, and it is a week to highlight what school counselors do to make an impact on their students, what successes they have, and what they do with their students. And so a lot of times schools will be really, really, nice to their school counselors, and they might give them some donuts or things like that. And that's great, for schools to do that, to kind of pamper their school counselor. But if your school doesn't do that, don't worry about it. Make it about your school counseling program, and make it your purpose to advocate during that week. We used to do stickers. It was always the same week that we did scheduling. So we would do I Love CF Counselor. We would hand out stickers to the students. We would do something with the staff where we would share. A lot of times it's around Valentine's Day. So we would do something with, Valentine's candy or something, but we would always use that week as an opportunity to share information about what we do as school counselors. Maybe we send a newsletter out sharing who we all are and our pictures, and talking about, our backgrounds, things like that. Share your, what your annual outcome goal is. Share what you've been doing in your program to make a difference with kids. But use it as an opportunity to advocate for your program. Don't think of it just as a time for people to, honor you. Make sure you're using it as an opportunity to, highlight your program and your successes. So we've come to the end of the class, and this quote is in the back of the Hatch and Heartline book, and I thought it was just so appropriate to share at the end of the presentation, because when I say come to the edge and you say, no, we can't, we're afraid. And I say, no, come to the edge. And you say, no, we can't, we will fall. And I say, come to the edge. And then you come, and then I push you, but you flew after that. And so it was kind of funny, but it's also so true that you will all be nervous and a little bit anxious about starting all the things that we've talked about this semester. And you'll still have a lot of learning to do. You'll always be learning about the different things that you can do as a school counselor, but just know you have to, go out and do it. And I wish all of you the best in your futures. And like I shared with you last week, please let me know if there's anything I can do for you as you start your goal or your school counseling careers. Just email me through the Upper Iowa email. And I just want to thank all of you for your time and your support. I, think again, every year this class I've gotten better, I think, at making sure that trying to touch on things that are really going to make a difference to help you be a better school counselor. And I hope you leave with some skills that maybe you didn't have before you started the class. So the last slide is, the next thing is ASCA National Model Assignments are due this Friday, June 28th, and then the final will open Tuesday, June 25th, and will be due by July 5th on Friday. Please let me know if there are any questions, and have a great rest of the summer. It has been great to work with all of you. Thank you.